I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And today's a party because we've got Vegas Combat Robotics in the house. So between the teams of Triton and Jackpot, we have Brad, Shea, Jeff, and Kat here. Everybody, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having us.
I'm super excited. Obviously, I've had Brad and Jeff on my show separately, but I've never done this kind of group type of thing. So I'm excited about it. I think that today can maybe get rowdy. Who knows? Yeah. So what I kind of want to talk about first is, you all have the robotic scene in Vegas, which obviously people know about BattleBots filming in Vegas, but I don't think they know as much about the overall robotic scene in Vegas. And I think it's one of those hot spots, where there's certain places in the country where there's a lot of events and a lot of things going on. So tell me about that and what you all have been doing within that scene there.
I think I'll start. All right, so it would have been about 2018, 2017. I started Vegas Combat Robotics. I was kind of the founding member. I think the original two core members were me and Robert Sten. Since then, it's grown to about 20, 30 people in Vegas now that build.
Yep.
I'd say about 20 to 30 people build regular, overall, and we have at least 10 active builders going. Like even this upcoming Norwalk, we have me, Brad, Shea, Kat, Robert, Kaz, Alex, Nick, Nick's kids.
VCR.
So yeah, basically we're at that point now where everyone out here is traveling, going to big events, doing big things. They're talking about adding a third heavyweight to Vegas, so yeah, that'll be fun.
But it did really start with you just wanted to find people to fight robots with.
Yeah, I didn't want to travel to go to events, but yet here I am traveling to events.
Now there's so many people going to Norwalk at once.
And I've only been out here for about a year now, and I come from Southern California where we have SCAR, and we're running monthly events. And I've been doing this for a long time and having a community, and we had started up a long time ago, kind of died off in California, grew back again. Now that I'm in Vegas, I now have this it's a smaller, kind of more interpersonal kind of crowd, and it's really fun to kind of talk to all these different people and kind of work with very different people that are kind of newer to robots. Some of them have very different ideas and different approaches, and so it's really cool to be out here and getting to build and fight with all these other people.
We do a kind of different competition style where it's Robert Sten developed it as being like the anti-up system, where when you register, you get 3 chips and you bet however many chips you want with matchups that you're setting up yourself in the pits. So a lot of builders like to come out and test, different things with their bots, fight all kinds of different robots. You don't have to worry about getting knocked out in 2 fights with a double elimination tournament kind of thing. So it's, getting rowdy is definitely part of the appeal of Vegas competitions, but it's because it's sort of founded around Jeff wanting to do weird stuff with weird people. And so he found the weird people and taught us how to do weird stuff.
There's nothing wrong with that. I definitely approve. Having kind of started this, I'm sure it's definitely advantageous to be able to have your own events locally, because while many builders don't really have any issues traveling, it's certainly much more convenient when you don't have to.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Or if it's a road trip, Jeff will take Jackpot to Southern California competitions all the time, or it's nice to be able to get around the area and do day trips and stuff like that.
Yeah. it is nice having though like local events for sure, because it's a different feel when you have like a more casual, laid back local event that you can attend versus having to like, we're going to Norwalk, we got a plan, the robots have to be ready ahead of time, not on the day, you got to pack, you have to only bring so many things. So it's definitely nice to have a local event while still having, you know, the ability to travel. And traveling out of Vegas to different events is actually pretty affordable, simply because you're usually flying out on weekends and coming back. And it's always this whole thing of, I love it in Vegas because the flights are so cheap. It's really easy to get places.
You're always catching the empty flight because they're trying to get people to Vegas, but then they got to ship the empty plane back to a hub to bring more people to Vegas.
Yeah.
So you're always catching the return. You're always catching the back end of the trip. And Vegas is actually a pretty good hub. Like you can go you do a circle 8 hours each direction. You have maybe like 9 clubs out there that you can go to. You got just off a few hands, you got SCAR, you got the various offshoots of SCAR that do various events there. You have Utah, which is Salt Lake's not too far from here. You got Phoenix, and there's like multiple clubs in Phoenix, there's multiple clubs in Utah. And if you really wanted to, you can even drive all the way up to Colorado. It's not
a quick flight to Colorado.
It's not a quick flight. The airport's pretty good here, so you can usually get to anywhere in the country for under $500 and under 5 hours.
Again.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, Vegas. The nice thing is that you're even from the flying hub perspective, but also you're in close proximity to several major cities that are, you know, pretty easily accessible. So, you know, that's nice both for travel to, you know, events outside, or if there's fans from other states that want to come in for it and, you know, check it out, then it's pretty accessible that way as well. I'm actually curious though, because I don't know that I've ever asked any of you this, but like, when BattleBots filming happens, being in Vegas, does it make it easier because you're there, or does it not make it easier?
No.
No.
Yes.
It's a mix of both. Like in season World Championship VI, it was a major advantage to us because everyone was dying of heat stroke, and we're like, yeah, this is just like a normal Tuesday. So.
Yeah.
We test all our robots when it's 120 degrees out, so we don't have to worry about anything overheating and stuff. You had teams.
But see, it was a disadvantage this year because it got so cold,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so warm-blooded that all of a sudden everyone else is freezing, and we're like, we're just in the freezer itself. We're like, no, we can't function.
No.
But yeah, in like season 6, a lot of teams were going around there packing their robots with dry ice and stuff to get their robots nice and cold before the fight would start. Because we were queuing up outside, which is a horrible idea because, you know, you got bots with fully encased metal with lipos inside of them, so it's just turning it into an oven. And I think they stopped that after that first 1 or 2 sessions.
Yeah.
But
I mean, for me, I enjoy it. When I was in Southern California and I was doing BattleBots, it was easy. And now when I'm here in Vegas, it's now easy because we get to build up until the point of like needing to bring it. We don't have to ship the robot. So you sometimes get 1-2 weeks extra to work on things and get things dialed in. So for me, as a person that's always procrastinating and always being late to getting things together, it works out great. But it also, like, you know, maybe you would then get it done earlier. I don't know. But it's, you know, it makes getting equipment there, like our toolboxes, our tools, like that can be a big advantage to have your own stuff if you can bring it. And it's a lot easier to bring if you're couple miles away.
I would say like season 5 was really kind of magical for Jackpot, partly because it happened so fast. It was such a fever dream, but like literally we just threw the robot in the back of Jeff's truck and drove it out. And once we like got there, it's like it was all BattleBots all the time. The only people you're really seeing are the people every day, because it was also with the COVID stuff, everything was really locked down. So you had, you know, it was just BattleBots world. You're like at the hotel with all the BattleBots people, or you're in the pits with all the BattleBots people, and like I didn't have to worry about anything that normal life usually entails. It was just like a perfect little bubble of robots, like a really, really hardworking BattleBots cruise ship or something. Whereas when being here, like, oh, I still have to walk dogs, I still have to like do my dishes, I still have to like, I actually live here. It's you know, I still had to maintain more stuff. It was a lot.
That's true.
it wasn't as immersive, I guess.
There's definitely a lot of trade-offs with having it local compared to out somewhere. Because when you're traveling there, you can go to the hotel, you hang out with everyone, you
Yeah.
have blast. Like season 5 was the one where I hung out with all the teams and went to the hotel rooms every night. But here it's like I'm still home, so I have to be responsible. So I was going home, and I think I didn't stay out with everyone until
The
the last day
night,
of filming.
The last day, yeah.
Like I was going home at
Yeah.
the reasonable time, getting decent sleep, then coming back.
Go home, take care of the dog,
Compared
take
to-
care of the cat.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. My team, we had a couple members that were, all of our members are from local Vegas, and so 2 of them, like, they had to go to work, so like they couldn't take that entire time off. So I lost them for a couple of days. One had school, one had work, and it's like, and it's understandable, but it's like because they're not forced to like take that time off, and not everyone can, to be fair. So they wouldn't have been able to do it otherwise. But it's one of those things that, like you said, is trade-offs, and there's certain nice things, certain bad things, but it all works out.
And the other thing that we like, there's an advantage we could have, but we don't. Like if we had a whole like shop locally, we'd have a huge advantage having it here. But the pits at BattleBots are more accommodating for building than it is where we normally build.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's bigger than my living room, so it's a lot more convenient.
Yeah,
to be in the
Yeah.
pits.
Triton was
It
like here, so
Triton gets built like in the living room, and then
Jackpot gets built-
gets built in our
Kitchen.
little dining
Dining
room
area
off
of
the
the
kitchen
kitchen.
in our apartment.
Yeah, you couldn't build Triton in your apartment.
No.
no.
We have, I have more of a living room area.
We could try it if we turned it like vertical. That's the
And
only
that-
way.
And that slowed us down too. Like that made it harder to really get Triton done until BattleBots, because just to fit it through the door, you can't actually, like, once the wheels are on. So a
You can
lot
only
of
pivot so much with
yeah,
a heavyweight.
a lot of stuff with logistically, just like it couldn't come together till we had the open space and actually could like use all our tools at once and not have to, so
That's one of the things with Jackpot is if I have the front wedge on it, it won't fit through my door. So I can't, if I want to test it, we're driving with the wedge, I gotta unbolt it, take it outside, put it on the bed of my truck, bolt the wedge on, then set it on the ground. Compared to someone in like Mad Catter had a nice little workshop where they would just set it on their ground of their makerspace and drive it around and put it back on their ramp. So there's a lot of extra steps that comes when you don't have a whole like shop accommodating a robot.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and because you're talking about like the size of the robots and stuff, and I mean, because I can tell you, like, I saw both robots in person, and I was watching this past week's episode, and I'm like, they look a lot smaller than what I remember, because you just can't understand the scale without being right next to it.
Yeah, try and fit them in the back of your car and you'll understand they're more than people sized, they're really big.
Although none of you guys were in California, we were trying to fit Doom in the back of a Toyota Corolla.
Oh no.
Oh no.
There's like 30-pound robots like early on, because Jeff had built a 30 sort of early when I had first kind of joined and like buckling it up in the back seat of my car felt such a little soccer mom thing. And like now Triton's been in the back of my car for
It's still in the back
since
of your
the
car.
last event. Yeah, because we haven't had room to move it back in the apartment.
Well, we have one of them in here. It's still a
it's the
tree at the
Christmas
moment.
tree.
Yeah, they have a Christmas tree Triton in the corner.
Just wrapped it with Christmas lights.
I mean, that's the thing to do.
Actually had pointed that out. I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do with getting everything back into my apartment. And he's like, well, it could be a Christmas tree. And I was like, it really could. So one of the spare frame and weapons is taking up very little space because it's vertical. It's doing the thing in the corner of the apartment. But the full-size Triton had a little anti-doing the thing device on the back that meant that
You're still teaching it bad habits.
yeah. But now we took it off so that when it comes back in, it can fit bookshelf style in the corner. Just logistical things. that you have to consider very seriously when you're a serious BattleBot builder. Yeah.
Yes, where am I going to fit these robots? What other uses can I have for them when I'm not running them?
Just put a sheet of
Lawnmower.
Lexan and it's a coffee table.
A coffee table, yeah.
Except I wound up getting a toolbox for a coffee table, so.
The real trick is to don't give them to other people to put on display so they don't take up space. Like season 5 Jackpot's currently at the Silverton, so that's not taking up space in the garage. Season 6 Jackpot's currently at Norwalk, so it's not taking up space in the garage. Now I need to figure out how to get rid of season 7 Jackpot.
Well, no, the cat likes to sit in Jackpot when it's just chilling on the floor. So
A nice
So-
cat tree.
that's cat tree.
It's box shaped.
It is. It's box shaped, so she likes to chill.
Yeah. Season 5, we would, and 6, we joke about Jackpot being an outside cat
Yeah.
because you couldn't really, again, the door issue is very real. And so it's a big, either it's going to be out in a garage. We were working, season 6, we were working out of Robert's garage. So if it came inside, it was a big deal. And now it's like, oh no, they're indoor cats now. We don't have enough space.
We don't have any garage.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had a 250-pound robot, I'm pretty sure that's where my cats would be. So,
No.
I built a bookshelf today, and immediately the cats were on it, but I had barely finished it. So,
Oh, and if we leave, like we had depth charge, we ran depth charge at the December Norwalk finals, and I'd taken it out when Dustin shipped it to us and was looking at it. I left it on the floor of the office for a minute while I went to get something, and when I came back, Laura was sleeping. My dog was sleeping with her nose on it, and I was just like, "That is not PETA approved. It's not like, no batteries in it or anything." But she just like, "Oh yeah, look at this thing.
I'm just gonna cuddle.
My chin fits on it. This is cool."
yeah, and you mentioned Dustin, and I see Dustin is with us in spirit in the
Yes,
back
Dustin
there.
is here with us.
Yeah.
We brought him BattleBots, so we had to bring the BattleBots, and so
Yeah.
he just now is creepily in our apartment. And sometimes late at night, when you come out to get a drink of water and you just happen to catch it in the side of your eye,
Yeah.
it freaks you out.
Yeah,
Every
and the
time.
dogs do bark at him sometimes.
Yeah, Laura will bark at him.
We
Especially
actually
if
a lot.
he's in like her spot.
we
She really gets-
after filming this season, they hadn't come to clean up their stuff yet, but we were already getting our stuff out of our pit. So we stole Dustin for a good 3 weeks, and he just kind of traveled in the cars with us. He traveled in the U-Haul with us on the way out of BattleBots. We used him to go in a few HOV lanes. So
He's a good sport.
he is.
Yeah.
He's really out for anything.
I kept joking we were going to take him to dinner one night. Just send hostage pictures of him.
Well, all the jokes he comes up with come out flat.
Oh,
That's the best. That's the best. Yeah, I'm actually curious too, because I mean, this year was obviously, well, not this year, last year was my first time going to filming at BattleBots, but I mean, I noticed even peripherally from years prior that since COVID restrictions aren't what they were, there's definitely a lot of things that they've been able to change, whether taking down barriers or whatever the case may be. Do you think that it was a little bit more relaxed and easy to do things this year as maybe in the couple years past?
I think it's definitely more relaxed on the pit side, but as far as competition side, it's probably the most stressful it's ever been. Everyone is super scary now. So if we had the competition level of season 5 with the open level of now, it'd be a lot more relaxed. But you gotta be in the 9th percentile or the 10th percentile to even be one of the 50, let alone something that gets in or even winning fights.
With the limitation of how many robots, and then also setting up a schedule ahead of time, they really gave us each robot, every single robot, I feel had a very hard schedule for that robot. It was very well balanced.
Yeah.
The introduction of Mike Jeffries really helped with setting up appropriate opponents for each robot. And I don't think almost everyone that I talked to said that it was one of the hardest BattleBots they've ever done. Even the people that have been doing it since season 1, because they just had a schedule that was correct for the robot. I feel it was correct. It was just hard. it was a hard
But
schedule.
it wasn't hard in the sense that you're like waiting for 3 a.m. to find out if you're fighting that day. Like it was much more like it was easier, I think, to be
Plan.
professional about. Yeah,
Mm.
or yeah,
The
and
logistics
allocate,
were a lot easier.
It was a lot and yeah, not more serious necessarily, but I feel like in previous seasons, like, you know, in part because we were discouraged for season 5, especially season 6 a little bit more like this, that we were discouraged from socializing too much because of the COVID restrictions. So there would be little pods and stuff, but in general is like, okay, after the event is when you're, or, you know, after the pits close or you leave the pits, that's when you're hanging out with people and chatting and doing all this. This year, I feel like we got a lot more just like general socializing interaction in the pits, which meant that, you know, it was a little bit more of a blur for me a little bit, but in a good way. But yeah, being able to plan for the 4 fights you had, I liked the matchups. I feel like everybody got an opportunity to show something different about their robot.
Yeah, that's what was good about it is that we were able to, like, we knew on that first day who we were all fighting. So we originally set up for the Scorpios fight, but after we were done and set up for that, we started building for our next fight. Then we were like, oh, we're not fighting Shredder Raider until our 4th fight, so we can get that the wedge and stuff queued up, but we don't need to work on it right this second. Like, you can use your what would be wasted downtime, like, so normally you'd be waiting in the queue for like, you know, an hour or so like that. During that hour, you can start working on other little things to get ready for the next competition or the next bot.
Mhm.
And being able to allocate like what configurations you have that might be better for different things. You're not like worried about saving something for what a future matchup might be. Like if you know you have a good horizontal configuration, you know who you want, who's the best opponent in the group that you have
You can
to use it against.
maximizing your limited spares basically.
Yeah.
And for teams that have like we didn't really have more than 1.5 robots done at a time. If we actually had 2 ready to go Freddy's at one time, we can do like, hey, we have this one already good to go for Scorpios. Let's get rotators for him ready to go.
I think that's the goal for
Season 8.
for next year is making sure we have 2 that are ready to go instead of saying we're gonna have 2 that are ready to go.
Same with Triton, exactly same thing.
You had 2 at the end.
Yeah, kind of, but like, you know, it's always you're always fighting. You have one that kind of gets ready, then you kind of start working on the next one. You always are trying to do that, but with Triton being a new robot and us like learning a lot of, you know, just like we technically could have 4 frames, but it's like we don't have time to get all this ready. So it was always a battle of trying to get the next one ready, and it was hard to. We want to have 2 robots completely done before the event, ready to go, and then have spares so we can be working on potentially a 3rd frame, getting ready, kind of a thing.
And if it were me, I'd love to have 3 jackpots ready to go.
Oh, I mean, I love 6, but I mean,
Just in case one eats it,
the back and
then you
forth.
have the backup.
If you're gonna do 3, might as well do 4. Then you have one for your
But
fight.
I will say
There's
there are
nice.
teams that bring a lot of like try for complete robots. And sometimes that's, you know, its own set of problems when you have to prioritize what about each robot is in the best shape for different things and how modular they are, you know, like Triton is surprisingly modular because everything can disassemble really fast and you can swap things out and then put it back together, but it does take time to do that. So like you can have 2 full robots of stuff that is all good to go, but you still have to, like, if you have to swap out the butt or something like that, it's still going to take time.
And the other thing is, like, they can be 2 totally identical robots and they'll drive totally different. Like all the components would be the exact same frame, but they could be welded slightly different, or something might not be tight.
Each one kind of has their own gremlins.
They have their own.
Yeah, even though Triton's frame, like, you know, we have 2 frames and they're both different weights, and that impacts like what weapon we can put in each one and like what, you know, total armor we can do for each one. So that's always the thing. Even though they're almost identical, there's still differences.
There's always slight variations in metal thicknesses and stuff like that. It can change the way certain things will flex.
Because none of these things are production parts where you're, you know, setting up a production line and producing a ton of them. You have like 1, 2, 3 max kind of thing, and it's like each one is gonna, and you're gonna iterate on it, you're gonna improve it, you're gonna change it, it's gonna be modified. It's just always never gonna be the same. Like one takes damage and you fix it, well now it's gonna be different.
I think we had like a graveyard going this year of jackpots because we had actually, because we live here, it was easy to like say go home, be like, crap, we lost that in a fight. Oh, we have it on an old Jackpot, so we just scavenge from old Jackpot. So we just had frames everywhere this year.
Yeah, because there was a backlog of because there's a lot of people ordering. So it's like we can't order the exact part we need. So we like say something would happen on a bot, we would go grab one of the tore up frames from last season and cut a chunk of metal on it and use it as a patch.
Yeah.
Well, even like Cobalt was like, we had extra frame pieces that we weren't able to get a full Triton together, like another, like a fourth Triton together. So it's like Cobalt's like, do you have some extra AR? And it's like, well, we have this extra frame piece. Okay, here's this piece of metal. You know, it's like everyone kind of does that to some extent.
Somebody will, throw out a, hey, I'm looking for if you have, and everybody's like, okay, here's my pile of, 3/8 AR that like, this, oh, you need a U shape? Okay, here, this might be easier. Like,
but it's not as much as it used to be, because now everyone's realized how big the market is for broken parts.
No.
Well, it has to be really unidentifiable, and because we've been around for a while with small robots too, the amount of just like material detritus that is like, it's like the cardboard box thing when you get a box and you're like, oh, this is a really good box, I should keep this for something. Like it's like that, but it's like, oh man, this is a really good piece of broken whatever or cut off of something, like I should keep it. What do I do with it? And then when somebody 3 years later is like, I need a 3-inch
Yes.
you're for 6 years, great.
Yes.
Please, dear God, take this.
I think that's hoarding. I think that's
Yeah.
hoarding tendencies.
Yeah,
It's not
Yeah.
like if you actually use it.
eventually.
Eventually.
I'm also curious because aside from like that, but in general with BattleBots this season, there were a lot of changes, in particular, like not just the the amount of matches and knowing your schedule ahead of time, but a lot of rule changes that kind of had been talked about for a while, but I think came heavily in part from a lot of things that happened last season in various matches. Obviously we can't talk about how any of these new rules may play out in the future specifically, but what did you all think about those changes with like the engagement rule and the movement rule and like having a match steward where you can actually appeal this year?
I liked the appeals that we could do. I like, was it limited? It was just the one appeal that you had per season.
You can get one appeal if it's successful. You can appeal again in the future, but if you appeal and it's declined, you can't appeal until
next season.
Or the next round of whatever.
You can't appeal. So if you do it in the fight nights, and you basically to get one for that, then you would get one for a round of 32, or a golden bolt, like per sectioned out.
I liked that a lot though, because it kind of shook things up a little bit. Instead of being like, oh, it went to judge's decision and it is what it is, you could come back and say, no, I don't agree with that, let's shake it up. And I don't know what all the aired just yet of the appeals, but
I don't think any have yet.
No, but it definitely shakes a couple things up, which is really nice.
I think the big change is like it really made us more like builders, more of an active participant in the competition, like, which sounds really silly since obviously we're active, like smashing into each other, but being heard a little bit more, I think made a really big difference, because like usually for small robot events, oftentimes, the EOs or, little things can happen. Like it's more of a conversation, even if it is still the judges and the announcers and everything are the authority. So I think having a formal opportunity to point out when things really might not match the reality of, where you're coming, like, I think that was a big deal.
And that's like, especially for the match steward thing too. Like that's exactly what that is too.
This gives us more of a voice.
I think the appeal should be utilized across all of the combat. Like there's a few like I'll watch the Norwalk fights and there's feels like how did that go to that person? Like the biggest example would be like when Lucas lost to the burger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Lucas was moving and they were not.
I mean, it depends. Like smaller events, it's harder for that to happen, right? Like you only have sometimes it's hard to get judges for small events.
Yeah. Norwalk's not a small event though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's time constraints. I mean, if you had it set up at every event where this is it, the single event, you get one appeal, that's it. use it wisely. But then you'd have everybody, you know, in an event with like 60, 70, how many are going to Norwalk?
101.
101.
Beatles.
101
people trying to, you know, go in and appeal a decision doesn't work time-wise.
Well, it wouldn't work for BattleBots either, you know, if everyone appealed.
Oh,
So it's like, you
That's why
know,
they put the
it's nice
Yeah.
that we have like 50 professional teams that are like going to be reasonable about it.
exactly.
Because if everyone appealed, which, you know, if you lose, it's like, oh, I'm just going to appeal the fight. Like the lucky fight, like, well, that was whatever. But, you know,
Did anyone try
if-
to like appeal all their fights?
Well, you can't.
well,
if
you can.
if
If,
don't-
I
if
know.
it goes, yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
But-
exactly.
And also, I think it helped since they did implement new rules, and
Mm.
they had like the judging was a little like the judges were different a little bit this year, and like a lot of them don't actively like participate in robotics outside of being an on TV BattleBots judge, so they aren't necessarily as used to what combat really looks like
So
as much. I don't know if that's like I would assume, you
it's
know.
evolved a lot
Yeah.
in the 5 to 6
So-
years that they've
No.
been since they've competed.
So having like the builders themselves sort of advise on the judging as they're getting used to it, or, you know, and seeing the new rule set, I think that was really important, because there is always weird ambiguity when you introduce a new rule or, you know, things like that. So I think
For new
them
judges.
being able to see the perspective of the drivers, I think was really important. And it's a really good thing that they had given the drivers and competitors the opportunity to.
I mean, I felt personally a lot better just having Mike Jeffries, because someone I've known for a long time. I know he knows combat robots at all levels, you know, small robots, big robots, heavyweights, and you know, he knows BattleBots, and so I felt really comfortable being able to talk to him about things, and you know, you get a better grasp of like what's, because there's always this like kind of mystery behind the curtain effect where you have like the producers that are like doing things and like setting up fights, and you don't know, you know, are you getting a fair shake? What do they think of your robot? What, you know, what am I supposed to do to, you know, impress people? And it's nice having somebody to kind of at least, even if it's just comforting, it's just nice to have somebody there to say like, we understand, you know, we're trying, we're doing this, we're doing that,
Well,
to
it's
try
nice
and make
too
everything
that
good.
Jeffries, you know, because we're used to production coming to us and being like, hey, we need you for this time slot. Are you going to be ready to go? And telling them, no, we still have to build this entire robot in the next 3 hours. We're not going to be ready in 30 minutes. There's no way. And then having my Jeffries to step in and be like, okay, I understand a little bit more what that actual time constraint is. So he could actually go back to production instead of having 3 or 4 people coming to us saying, we need you ready now. He could be like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. You gotta give him time.
Well,
Well,
and
and
there
the-
were things too where like if you knew what your fights were all gonna be, like if you wanted to fight early in the day, you're like, hey, I'm ready. I want to go right now. Like
Yep.
even there were times where teams would be rushing production, being like, give me my fight right now. I need more time after this fight to make the next
Yeah.
fight. Please let me fight as soon as possible. And I think that was kind of unique.
Well, and to what like Kat was saying is like, what the nice thing about Mike Jeffries specifically is there could be 2 teams saying, oh, I need 3 hours to build this robot because like this robot's like blown up, this robot has a small issue. Mike Jeffries can see that and be like, okay, you guys need to actually get ready. Like that's silly that you're not ready in time. They actually need time to get ready. He can help massage that. Whereas a production person, they're looking at a robot, they have no idea what's going on. They really don't understand it, you know, for a lot of it, because they just haven't, you know, they don't build, they don't know.
No.
So Mike Jeffries being somebody that can identify like, oh, I can see that this entire robot's blown up. This robot is just, you know, a couple parts are missing.
Batteries.
Right. So that's a
whatever,
very
something,
important
yeah.
person to like be able to go between. And,
It's like with
help.
Triton, because you to take those bolts out and the whole thing is in half. You go over there and you look at it, it looks like it's split in half. So they're like, oh wow, this team is not ready at all, even though they're like 10 minutes away from being ready
No.
to fight.
Yeah.
Certain robots are just completely you know, like so many robots so different that it's hard to know like in between each one how they operate, how it comes apart, goes together, how quickly things can happen. And so it's always like
And in the off season, Jeffries was following all of the pages to see how he knew exactly how like most of the bots worked internally, and like he also how it helped out with the 4 fights, because he was seeing all the videos of the preseason like, oh wow, that robot looks really good, we should give him some tough opponents to see if they can prove themselves. Or hey, I was watching this robot do a drive test and it's not good, so we should probably give them some softer stuff to get their stuff figured out, or give them a control bot so they don't lose their robot in one fight.
Yeah, Jeffries was definitely a bonus this season.
Yeah.
Definitely good.
Even just, I don't know how he had the the bandwidth to be the moral support as well that he was, because
Yeah.
you know, he gets it, and he understood better, like, I think how robots really interact with each other and what good counters are. And I mean, the Triton matchup specifically, I thought was really well, they did plan it really well, because we had a lot of, you know, first assembly kind of an obstacle course as it is.
Yeah.
And our first fight being against Lucky, which is, you know, a likely non-damaging robot, and we were, the things we needed to learn were how much damage will Triton do to itself, right? So it was great that we had that as our first day of fighting, and then we had a full day off,
Mhm.
and then we fought once a day after that.
Right.
So we had one kind of non-damaging robot, non-damaging fight first that would give us a chance to really see how it works and what we needed to fix. We had extra time to fix it before the 3-fight gauntlet, where we knew we were going to be taking damage and needed to be able to plan.
But we were still fighting like
Yeah.
really strong opponents that,
Yeah.
you know, were very interesting matchups,
Yeah.
especially like Horizon is an interesting thought
Yeah.
matchup for us. So like,
No.
you know, like normally Horizon I think would be particularly good for certain robots, and ours is like, well, I don't actually know, because
Yeah.
it's maybe wide enough to get the Triton. We don't know,
Yeah.
you know. So
It
like, that was
the
the thing.
perfect, it's the perfect counter to be like not a wedge, but really good at fighting Triton.
Yeah,
Like,
so
it was a scary
we were really
one, yeah.
excited that we had such like, and Copperhead and Glitch are like ridiculous little tanks. So it's like, can Triton do enough damage to blow these up? It was a great, like,
Yeah.
it was great. We had Lucky first, so it's like we knew it. They're gonna probably plot a big wedge, which they did, and we're gonna have to, you know, see what we can do, and then
We knew
learned
they
from
were all
that.
going to be really challenging,
Yeah,
but we could plan a little bit better for what the challenges were going to be.
yeah, it was.
Because
It
I
was
mean,
great.
and Lucky was a very scary opponent for us for that reason, because you know, things that can stop the weapon are the main concern with a big horizontal like that. And they can stop a weapon, and they've got a great driver. They can do a lot of really interesting control stuff. And like I said, we didn't know how much Triton would hit itself, or and flying through the air because somebody punches you while you're spinning up is going to give you that opportunity. So it gave us a, you know, it really set us off at a great start. And I think it was very, like, they planned our fights in a really smart way to give us an opportunity to get the most out of the robot, because we all have the same goal when we're at BattleBots, which is to do something awesome, you know, and production wants that and we want that. And I think this was the first season that it really felt like we were working towards that together instead of in a top-down antagonistic kind of way.
Yeah, and actually, like I want to dive a little bit more into those first fights for all of you. You know, like you said with Lucky, you know, my first thought with that matchup is that, you know, I didn't think that it was an especially great matchup for Triton because of the fact that they have that really big wedge. And I mean, it's hard to do damage when you can't get to anything. Although I can say, I definitely didn't expect the match to finish the way that it did.
Nobody did.
That was a surprise.
That's the Deep Six curse.
Well, so that was partly because it was such a last minute robot, and some of our geometries had changed. And so, you know, we have some big bolts, big shoulder bolts that hold the wheels on, and then it basically got stuck between that and the bar. The bar is a little different than the original concept bar, such that, you know, in CAD, okay, it works great. In reality, when you actually get a belt, okay, it gets stuck like that. Luckily, that was a very easy change. We filed those bolts like a 45, and now the wheels touch. So in the future, that shouldn't happen. But you know, Lucky is a complete counter to us in theory. But you know, we did get very close to completely disabling them. And you know, as when we talked to them afterwards, they couldn't fire another shot. So if we ended up landing on our side, we probably could have won that fight. They could not flip anymore. They were kind of dying, and their entire arm was tweaked. I think they threw that whole arm because it did get hit and it did get bent up, and it was in a lot worse shape than it looked, which is I'm happy about. That means we were doing things, we were hitting hard, and it wasn't like up to 100%. So like, you know, that's a good starting point for a new robot to have it, like she said, having an opponent that is not going to necessarily completely destroy us and give us that chance to kind of get things tested and get the bugs out and all that. So it was great for us, and and we were able to, at least for ourselves, prove that it's doing things, it can do things, and we're excited about that going forward.
And seeing how it drives, because like the way Dustin designed it was to give it, like, to make it an easier driving experience than like Tombstone might be, that kind of thing. So the fact that it was so zippy, and even when he was in the test box, because Triton's like almost the size of the test box, that he could move around and like, you're going fast in the test box, like turning around. And I was like, oh my God, we're gonna break the test box and they're never gonna allow us back. And oh my God. And he was like, this isn't how this robot's supposed to move. Like, people were coming up to us for days afterwards in the pits being like, so Triton's really fast.
Yep.
Yeah, it's usually a thing like a Tombstone type robot, you know, something with a big weapon, like especially horizontal. You want to box rush it. You want to get out there and then like try and stop them. And that robot doesn't really need to be fast; it just needs to spin up its weapon and be consistent. Whereas Triton's like, no, we box rush you, because it's just so fast. It can it could box rush, but in that regard, it can get away from an opponent to spin up in time and then, you know, maneuver itself and kind of do some interesting maneuvers in terms of spinning around and kind of like, we're lucky was wedging us, we can kind of turn around and kind of swing our weapon into them and that kind of thing. So it gives you a good advantage to be able to, maneuverability is always key to any kind of robot.
But Dustin did he put a lot of thought into making it move in a really awesome way that I think complements your driving style anyway.
On Jackpot.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
No.
So that was it ended usually. So we started our season usually how we end our season. So we're off to a good start. But going into that fight, we rebuilt the self-rider like 3 or 4 times, and we were super tired building it, and we put one of the non-battle hardened motors on the self-rider. So after that, during the first few changes, when we hit them really hard in their wedge, we think it shattered the magnets in the self-rider. So it seized onto the stator and the arm wouldn't be able to move. Then following up after that, Scorpio bent our arm into our blade and shot it up, and it twisted the magnets on the can were seized to the stator, and it twisted the stator, snapping it. So that's why the arm was able to move slightly, but not enough to have enough power to self-ride it. So from that point, we were dead in the water once we were on the back. Then on top of that, that's when Diana brought the arm down and just smacked right into where our weapon ESCs are.
She knows what she's doing. And it's that was because I was watching that one from the pits and I was just like,
yeah, it's like it ropes, it self-righted so
the
good.
meaty stuff to hit.
No, but like the issue with all of that is once we had that fire, it demagged all our motors, which is going to be a theme going on for the rest of the season.
You want to explain a little bit more what
that
means with them, how motors work?
So when the magnets get hot, they become weaker, so they have less power. So the stators and stuff will be perfectly fine, and you'll test it in the box. And like, oh, it spins up fine, but it'll just not have the same amount of power behind it. So your sub 3 second spin up is now like a 12-second spin up, and it
loses all its oomph.
Yeah, it loses all its oomph. But the gearbox didn't break, so we know that it had enough to be a hard stall and hit our own weapon and come back and still be just fine. So we're still very happy with the rider, and hopefully you'll be able to see it actually right in a competition. We've never done that before. We've self-righted in the street, in the test box, everywhere else, but we've never done it during the clock. So rotator's not really a flipper, so so I'll see us riding that one, but we'll see in 3 weeks.
I don't know. Rotator kind of did get flipped like crazy in the Hydra match.
Yeah,
maybe it is a flipper now. I don't know.
You never know.
It flipped us pretty good once before.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of season to go. It's exciting that with these additional matches, and then like, you know, once we get to the round of 32, those are going to be longer episodes than what we normally see, because they're trying to include like more content and stuff. And I think that's a lot of what fans have wanted to see. So I think that's going to be exciting. But kind of, you know, going along with the theme of what I've been talking about on a lot of my shows recently is that, you know, it sounds like that BattleBots World Championship VIII may be filming in the summer again of this year, which is not that far away.
Well, yeah, Greg commented it, so we can say that at least.
Yes.
Oh, so we can't say it now.
But again, the amount of knowledge that the builders have and that the public has
Yeah.
is
It's roughly the
not
same.
as different as people think.
It's
So
not.
we're all in the hoping things, but nobody can really be in the planning phase.
Usually when the fans find out there's a new season is when the builders are finding out there's a new season.
We're usually finding
they-
out from the fans.
because they'll release supporters only content that builders aren't automatically given subscriptions to. So we'll find out from subscribers to BattleBots, like, oh, this is what's happening. But that also was a really nice thing, that since they announced it all from the beginning how the season was going to air, that we could plan better for like letting sponsors know, and like, because friends and family always ask, like, when are you fighting? Like, I want to see you fight. And now we can actually tell them, instead of being like,
Hey, it's gonna be
I
this
don't
week.
know, but maybe next week, maybe not saying, but you know, so this time at least we could be like, oh, we're doing it, and you know, go into the background of what we were putting into it too.
Also, we now have the hometown advantage because it's going to be hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be, I mean, at least it's not August,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be hot.
But the way I survive in the summer here is by not going outdoors.
Yeah.
And you can't angle grind.
I work
Oh,
outside, so I'm used to it. So
Please set up an angle grinding tent, like in some kind of air conditioning thing. That's not
Yeah,
good
no,
for
it's
us.
in winter.
Yeah.
It was hard in winter because it does warm up during the day a little bit, and it's so bright.
Yeah.
Like the sun is really bad. So yeah,
Yeah.
angle grinding. That's the
Greg,
I
you
think
need
it
to
was-
set up an angle grinder tent for us if it's in the summer.
Or a painting, even a painting place.
oh man, yeah.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I don't know how many times I sat like a turtle outside, like I paint something and I have to wait for it to dry. And I would just sit out in the sun, just trying to absorb as much heat as I could.
It does evaporate the paint faster,
It does.
but it's also very windy.
They need to
It's-
pick it up, and it's like 1,000-degree
Oh, yeah.
AR 500 they just painted.
It's very, you know. BattleBots is super fun.
It
Just
is.
to remind everyone that we do it because we love it, and the logistics are kind of fun.
I mean, you know, being from the Midwest, Vegas in July to me sounds absolutely awful.
Oh, you're talking like 120 degrees, like Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Just sweat everywhere.
When you open up the car door, if it's been parked in the sun, it's like when you open an oven, if you're wearing like metal jewelry, it heats up really good.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Crack your windows. Yeah.
yeah.
You have to very carefully like reach and get your seatbelt because the metal will be hot, so you can't touch any metal.
I do wear jeans in the summer because if there's any like leather on your seats at all in the car,
yeah.
like when my last car had like a little bit of like strips along the side, which looked really cute, but also was just like the burn zone
Yeah.
when you sat down. Yeah.
I can confirm, because last year I visited my sister in Phoenix in the summer, and I was like,
Oh,
why
no.
do you have towels in your car? And
Yep.
she was like, well, there's a reason for that.
Yeah. Tactical steering wheel covers. It's a
I
thing.
should just sell oven mitts with the cars out here.
They
Just
need
an
to
oven
do
mitt.
ones, yeah.
You should just sell cookie dough for the cars.
Huh? David
David-
Small has done that
Yeah,
in
David-
Phoenix. Yeah, he's baked cookies in his car before.
New VCR product lines, you know, for the fans
Oh, we
that
do
come
have
out in
cookies.
July.
Yeah, that's
Just-
true. My robots are named Cookies, so that's the cookie line of Vegas.
Mhm.
Bake your own cookies.
That's it.
Oh,
If we do go,
bake sale.
yeah, if we do go ahead with season 8, we should totally do cookies out in the grinding area.
Yeah, those would Those would not be chocolate chips. That would be like AR 500 chips.
Just like, yeah, just like put them all along like the Triton blade.
The micro metals can't cancel out the microplastics.
It's exfoliating. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, if that happens, that's a pretty quick turnaround time to for anything. I mean, I guess though you guys have a little bit of advantage being local because like you said, you have a little bit of extra time to work on the robots, but it's still not that much time.
No.
Well, the other thing is most of the show hasn't aired yet, so if we had like a bomber season, we won the whole thing, we can't talk about it to get sponsors.
True.
So it's like you can't use that as a leverage point because even like Golden Bolt, that's probably not going to start until that's probably not going to air until after we film the season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely some advantages and disadvantages there, but it should be interesting to see how that plays out. And as I've said before, darn that F1.
Yeah.
Doing their events.
We'll see if it means that there's more like industry around manufacturing parts for that, it could be interesting. I mean, like, because there are a lot of shops out here that will, water jet super thick stuff, like our sponsor SRS, like they do things really fast and they're used to doing, they can cut really thick materials. So like when we were asking like, hey, we have 1-inch thick AR, is that okay? They're like, yes,
We got you, boom.
yes, that's okay. Worry when it's more than like 6 inches thick. It's fine. But it will be interesting to see how that changes the industrial side of what's going on in Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then one other thing, speaking of, things in Vegas that I wanted to ask you about, because that's something that's obviously new for this year, is starting next month, BattleBots is now doing this Destructathon, this live show every night. What do all of you think about that? Because it's just an interesting type of thing to do, to have like a lot of these robots that people know, but not necessarily have the normal drivers behind it. Right. So it's just different.
I think it's going to be a good thing because, like you said, when you saw it in person, you got a better feel for like the size and the scope, and you can feel it. You can like feel the vibrations in the ground sometimes of these massive hits, and it's a different air about it. And getting to see them in person is very different than seeing on TV. So it gives the opportunity for people to come out and see robots fight, because it's hard to make like a very specific filming window, sometimes, and like specific days, you need to be there, you're coming to an event. It's going to be more of a show. It's going to be for the audience more so than for the competition itself. And so I think it's going to be a good thing to get more people to see BattleBots and propagate BattleBots and et cetera. In terms of like what it's going to be like, I don't know. I have no idea.
I think like the choices, like the bots that are in the live show are really interesting like they're really smart choices, like what Zach Goff made, like Overkill and all the different ones they have are definitely going to
be good show bots. It's going to be fun.
Happy to look at, and I think all audiences can kind of like recognize them. Especially, I didn't grow up watching the older seasons. I was a very late comer. Like I watched BattleBots for the first time when I was like 29 years old. So all of it's kind of new to me. But seeing like it's a different era of bots, I feel like, that like Chopper and like
you have a good mix, because you have like some of the newer robots like a Malice or something like that, and you have like Tazbot, who like what? Like that's crazy. That's it's BattleBots Comedy Central era, that kind of thing. And then you have some new ones that are just like, that's going to be a really good live show robot. Or like Diablo, that looks a great.
Diablo is so good too, because they do have a lot of the fan favorites that people can recognize when they go in. Like, you got Witch Doctor, you've got Hypershock,
got Malice,
you got Malice in there with
Nightmare.
Yeah,
kind of in both, yeah.
90%.
Oh yeah, no,
giant vertical.
Really interesting robots. So I think like,
and again, one of my old favorites.
We know just as much as the public does about most of the live show stuff, because it's very mysterious. The teams couldn't talk about the fact that they were doing it
Mhm.
while they were doing it. Like now they can come out and say like, oh yeah, I have 10 robots in
built
my
6
garage.
battles.
Congratulations. Like,
We're in the same
Oh.
boat as like the fans, basically. Unless you're like
And-
someone that's building bots for the show, you're very out of the loop.
and we're as excited, I think, as fans are too, because we have no idea what's going to happen.
We are going to opening night though. So.
Yeah, we're very
So we-
excited to go be a cheering section for sure.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we don't know who's going to be working there or anything. Everybody here is like, oh well, if you need part-timers, like,
I definitely want it to be successful and I want it to, go well, but we just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't have any information. It's sometimes
It's definitely the most amount of money they put into advertising BattleBots ever.
It has been nice, like driving around the strip and like seeing the bulletin boards and
Mhm.
seeing like on the back of taxis, like BattleBots Destructathon. It's like, oh,
yeah.
I know that. We're part of that, kind
I
of.
just look at like, there's something really magical about seeing multiple heavyweights next to each other, and like
A flock of heavies.
seeing
A flock
seeing
of
like
heavies.
the fleets that everybody's posting individually is one thing, but like I wanted forever if we could just do like a class picture of all the heavyweights next to each other every
Mm.
season, because the amount of variety is insane. Just the
Yeah.
size of
Yeah.
them next to each other. It's
we
like
used to
King of Bots did that.
yeah,
right?
we did a King
Yeah,
of Bots. We put them all in the arena, and then we like all the builders, like just the robots, and then like all the builders. That was a great,
just
great
put
picture.
all the robots next to each other is like, it's one of those things. I'm sure you could Photoshop and make it to scale, but like when you see it in person, your brain just like,
Robot games used to do that too. They take
Yeah.
like all the robots, like all different weight classes too, and then
Yeah.
you get like the giant picture. Those are always it's really
I
cool.
don't- yeah, I know it would be a really logistically.
Oh, it's a
horrible thing
nightmare.
to do,
Oh, yeah.
but it would
Yeah.
be so worth it for the serotonin of just seeing them. Because even just Jackpot and Triton put together like next to each other, you're just like, that's a group of chaos.
No.
But when you have multiple ones of them, it's just, I don't know. That's one of my favorite parts before a fight, like when you're queuing up, because sometimes they will have like multiple fights worth sort of in the back.
On the,
Usually
in the
not.
battery pit.
Oh,
In the
yeah.
battery
Oh,
pit when
yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
because everyone will wheel the robots over to each other, then take pictures of them next to each other, and
Yeah,
We
and
got-
just
Do
seeing
stupid
them that
things to
close
them.
to each other is because they live like all these robots live all over the world. There's the amount of work that goes into each individual one. Seeing the culmination of that together and that volume of them is just
Just the work of getting that
Yeah.
many things. I think they mentioned it in the episode, like some of the teams brought over like 5,000 pounds of stuff to work on, like their robots. So it's
Yeah.
just, it's amazing just the logistics of everyone coming together, that many people, that much crap.
yeah. And that's just like when the robots are standing still.
and just
Yeah.
break it.
Like part of why I think rumbles are like such a nostalgic thing to people is like, how else do you see that many bots in one place
No.
and really understand what they do to each other, So
Yeah.
but even so, like I could just look at the live show bots like standing still and get all the serotonin I need from that.
Mm.
But the fact that they're going to be live and fighting each other is also very exciting.
Yes, I think anything that potentially like grows interest in combat robotics, whether
Oh,
it be just people that want to watch or people that want to get involved, I think that that's amazing. And there's so many avenues to do that today. And I think like that's truly incredible. How many areas of the country have very active scenes, and that's something that I want to see continue to grow as more and more people get interested in this.
Well, that was one of the nice things about this season too. There was a lot of I'm gonna call it sneaking out because production didn't know a lot of what was happening. But there's like a little outway from our tent where we work in the pits back around to the actual arena. So a lot of teams were actually taking their bots out on their little pull carts and just hanging out before fights or after fights. So when the crowds or people were coming out from watching the fights for the day, they could just come up and they could actually see and touch and look at the BattleBot and actually ask the team questions. So we had we weren't really supposed to do it for production. When they found out we were doing it, they kind of tried to put a stop to it, but
Just because they want to make sure any robot that can be interacted with is ready to fight, kind of thing.
yeah.
For the most part, and because
Well, COVID restrictions too. They
And
didn't want a lot
shark.
of people
Lots
like
of
hanging
shark.
around.
And NDA because if there's any damage on the robot.
Yeah, NDAs were a big problem.
But
with
all the
that,
people
but-
there signed a paper anyway, so
Yeah. So that was nice just to be able to interact with people more and have them see the robot and just be like, wow, that's way bigger than I thought it was going to be, or way bigger than it looks like when it's in the box.
Yeah.
The typical reaction is like, oh wow, that's really small.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a little compact. It's a little compact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that was great. I was happy to see so many builders that were coming out and doing that, because I think a lot of the fans were like sad that they didn't have the option to go back into the pits this year. And I feel very fortunate that I had the opportunity to do that. And I mean, it was just like insane to see all of these tables, and like with, you know, all the different robots back there, and like you said, like with people that brought multiple bots, and it's just, you can't imagine what that's like unless you're there. And I know that that's something that Greg very much wants to bring back for future seasons, you know, if possible, to have some kind of way that fans can see the pits, whether that be on an off day or something like that. Because obviously on days that are not off, it's very challenging because everybody is extremely busy on those days.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting when they have the live show going, what kind of things they can have on display, you know, like, especially once, you know, first, now they all have all these brand new shiny robots that would look cool in a lobby, but I think as the, you know, nightly fights, right, wear on, eventually they're going to have some really interesting, like, heaps to display, you know, as like, or even a before and after. There's so many different, like, ways to comprehend what combat robotics is really all about, and seeing the twisted metal in front of you is definitely.
Well, I think too, like, you know, I mean, we haven't really discussed it a whole lot, but going down during live filming, and I mean, because we're here, you know, doing like a little tailgate party, just bring Triton in the back of the car, bring Jackpot on the back of the tailgate of the truck, and just be like, yeah, we're here, we're crashing the party.
Or either that or
With a steel chair.
Jackpot with a steel chair. Parking lot battles.
I'm still expecting like a call at some point saying, hey, we ran out of robots. Is Triton or Jackpot good to go? We need someone to fight tonight.
You're just hoping for that. That's what.
Jackpot's not running right now.
Feels like it though. Feels like it's gonna happen.
Triton's ready.
Triton's ready to go.
Yeah.
Triton's ready.
Yeah.
Just gotta take the
Right.
Christmas tree off of it.
But the battery.
No, we have the Christmas tree one, and then we have the
The fight ready.
The car one.
The one in the car.
the one.
It's
It's ready.
It's ready to go.
Just getting ready for Norwalk. So on the way over, we were bringing a couple of the robots just to, like, you know, show off and talk a little bit to Shea and Brad
We're
here.
in build mode.
And
super
I'm
fun.
in the front of my car, and I didn't have any room in my back seat, so I'm holding Rocket. And I'm just like, God, if we got pulled over right now, they're gonna think I'm transporting a bomb.
It's
Like,
so
where's Rocket? Can I show Rocket?
TSA is definitely one of our best friends at this point, because the things that
I
you think would be concerning are not the things that TSA is designed to catch.
If I pulled somebody over and like this was sitting in their lap, I would definitely have concerns.
Yeah.
And that's the new design of them. That's the original.
Oh
That's his original
man.
little Rocket.
Yeah, but kind of like going back to the whole thing about like fan interaction stuff. The one thing that I always enjoy is when they actually get into the pits, or like, you know, sometimes there's little kids and they get to come to the pits and see the robots, and then they get to touch them, or like lift the weapon up, like the extra weapon blades that are sitting there.
No.
Then they can feel how heavy that is, and they can't lift it, and they're like, oh, you know, because robots look like they can bounce around and do all this stuff, but when you try to like, I mean, Jeff can move his robot. I can't really move Triton that well. You know, it's like they're really heavy. It requires like two people to move it.
No.
They're these giant immovable objects, and then in there they're flexing and bending and flying around, and it's just like it's insane.
I would love to see that for next year and next seasons going forward, where they would just allow more kid interactions, like to come back. Like this year, I know we had a really good cheering section. Actually, we had a group of, I think that were the Eagle Scouts.
Something like that.
We had a troop of like Boy Scouts that were there, and they brought a whole troop, and just walking out to like, let's go Jackpot. It's like, yes.
Yeah, that is interesting too. This season, more than any of the other ones, people will note it, like have asked if were part of it, of BattleBots, that kind of thing, which is unusual.
Mhm,
No.
mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Getting noticed.
it's actually like it's no longer, oh, I used to watch that and Comedy Central. I'm like, oh, I saw you on BattleBots the other day or something like that. It's
Yeah.
more people actively seeing it.
Yeah.
Because it's, this would be the third year that it would be here if they do 8.
Well, and people have been driving by the arena for so long.
No.
So if you're wearing
It's a
anything
free
with
billboard.
BattleBots, or like we'll get asked, or even if just because some of our stuff, like Brad's hat it's a little metal Triton logo on the hat, and people are like, oh, that's neat. Did you make that? And then you get to be like, yes, it's based on this thing that I do. That's and then you wind up showing them YouTube videos. And
Well, it's fun. It's fun for me too, because I do hair for a living. So with my clients, I'll tell them like, oh yeah, I had to take 3 weeks off because we were filming. And then, oh, the episode's about to air, so get ready. And then I've got 80-year-old women that are in my chair that are so excited because they just watched BattleBots last night. And they're like, oh my, let me tell you about that. And they just will go on about it. And it's so neat to see that variety of people, that it's just like, it's not just like kids in college that are watching it. It's not just, the brains of society that are watching it. It's even your aunt is what, 87 years old?
Yeah.
And she can't see very well. So she types in all caps. So you get these messages from her where she's just like,
which all caps is correct when you're talking about BattleBots. Before I met Jeff, like I would watch, when I was watching, episodes, I would like every BattleBots night I would be on Facebook with, and I would just start a thread of, and I think I did all of them because like when I started making Builder friends, it was building. I was like, okay, these people can't see how much I really love this. Like, this is good.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, and it is all caps. BattleBots is an all caps sport. Yeah, for sure.
The logo's all caps.
That's true.
I support that. It's something to be excited about and to, have a very exclamatory reaction. So I can understand that. But yeah, there's lots to be excited about. There's this season, hopefully season 8 of BattleBots. There's, we're kind of starting a fresh year with all of the different Norwalk events and things like that. So this might be the first year that I go to both, which is exciting. So yeah.
This Norwalk should be very interesting because they're all new.
Yes, all new robots.
I'd say maybe 2/3 of the Beetles are brand new. Yeah, other third is existing Beetles, but they've never made it out to the East Coast.
I think all of the 30s are brand new.
All the 30s are brand new.
No, one of them's like a rehab,
but it's not. It hasn't been seen on a streamed competition, at least in the last 5 years.
A lot of the 12s too.
The 30. I mean, it was a mini bot.
I don't know. I'm excited because this is my first like big competition where I actually get to drive. So
Yay!
Yeah,
that's gonna be fun.
It's gonna. You're gonna like it.
Yeah, because I've driven Mantis before, but Mantis was kind of like a.
Mm-hmm.
I designed a robot and Jeff built it for me.
It's how you get
But it
started.
was kind of like just a little like appeasement bot, like here, go drive this, and it died so fast. It died so fast.
Definitely. I'm not a very competitive person generally, or at least I'm avoidant of situations that may result in failure. And there's so much opportunity for failure in combat robotics. So my approach is very much like, how can I cultivate a definition of success that nobody can say I don't need? So I do bristleBots because you can't tell me that's wrong. It is wrong. It's too wrong for you to correct me, So normally when I'm fighting or doing whatever, it's like, okay, I've got my particular problems that I'm trying to solve with that fight and my expectations are low. But running Depth Charge in December was like, I have never experienced a feeling like that where it's like, oh, I just fought a robot. Like that's what combat actually is. Because normally
that's what it feels like.
I'm watching them drive the heavyweights, like I don't want that pressure, that kind of like, but actually being in charge of something that really works is like, oh, this is why people like that. Well, I should probably try to do this more.
That's why.
So now we have.
That's why I like building silly bots like Wumbo and Rock and all that. So like if they don't work, okay, because you built something weird and stupid. But when they work really well, it's like a double gratification because you're not going out there with the two-wheel drive beater beating up someone. You're beating someone out there with like a big old weapon on a stick.
Yeah.
It's more satisfying when you're using something more unique rather than something that's kind of cookie cutter.
I think that is fun because I don't think you realize it enough when you're fighting with like Rocket, but just hanging back with the audience and like recording the fight, and I hear people just, what is that? Why is it doing? Why is it working?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it wins, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, like building robots, I cared. I tried to win a lot, you know, because I started this like it's about 20 years ago, and I did like little robots, and I would win competitions, and I did pretty well. And I kind of went into a phase where I started doing more like live streaming, and I ended up producing like events basically and running events. And I didn't have time to build at that point. So now that I'm kind of building again and having the time to do that a bit, I like building silly things, and it's more fun, it's more rewarding, and I'm enjoying having, you know, focusing on having fun rather than trying to be super competitive and win, because I've done that before. It's all right, but it's not as fun.
It's lonely at the top.
There's
Sometimes.
All of our insects are unique, but yet both our heavyweights are cookie cutter.
I don't think there is a cookie cutter heavyweight. Like there's ways to, you know, there's standardization in a way, but just the amount of like
you almost have to be to get accepted. Yeah.
It's true.
but still, I don't think many builders ever look at another person's robot and are like, oh yes, that's the normal way to do that. At least about every single thing. Like everybody has to solve a problem differently. And I like that everybody solves a different problem when they're designing their robot, right? Like mine is just, I want the weapon to move the robot is my thing, because that takes away the responsibility of deciding, you know, strategy. I don't have to try and get around something. It's like, okay, as long as something hits the shell spinner, it should get hurt. So I just have to get the shell spinner to the other robot. Like that's the only problem I have to solve. Some people have way more ambitious specific problems. And you know, it's interesting how different they are for that reason, because nobody's prompt is the same. Winning is sort of like,
yeah, everyone wants to win, but it's not necessarily like your main focus for everyone. And everyone gets different things out of it. Some people prefer having just like, they just want to drive a robot. They don't necessarily want to build it. They want to drive it. Like people want to just build them. They don't necessarily really care as much on the driving side. So
that's kind of how Robert is. Robert doesn't like driving bots, but he likes the design process.
Yeah.
That's why he'll build a bunch of stuff and just give it to people to go drive.
Yeah.
And it winds up being really interesting because you get to see the best of people from that. Like I'm not, you know, a great driver, but I can do I can do different things for a robot. You know, the robot isn't going to have its best performance if I'm driving it. For normal robots. For BristleBots, yeah, I do okay.
Well, even on like the TV side of it, there's so much like that goes into it. That's not the physical robot itself. There's so much in the branding, costume design, social media. You're basically starting a whole startup company every year.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. And the like kind of the last thing that I want to talk about is something that Jeff was just talking about, is that whole like, you know, coming up with something that's creative and weird, and how like it can be more fun to beat someone with that than not. Because like it's funny because I was, you know, not as specifically in this way, but talking to the Death Roll team about like back in the 2019 season, and you know, they beat Endgame. And, you know, Steven was like, you know, Endgame's a really good robot. Like, yeah, we beat them, but like, they're really good. And I'm like, yes, but you beat them with a freaking crocodile.
Yeah. So you brandished a knife at them. Like Death Roll is one of my favorites. That arm is just
horrifying.
The best thing.
I didn't realize the arm was going to be on there. And then when I was watching one of the fights, I was like, oh
my gosh.
Oh god.
Especially when the arm takes damage and like the fingers are just hanging.
Oh,
it's my favorite self-writer.
The hands all like
it's the perfect uncanny valley of like.
Then I love when they'll
it's
glue
just
it.
Enough gore.
They'll glue it, then they'll like wrap a band-aid on it.
Yeah. One of them has fingernail polish, one of them whatever. Yeah. No, I lent them glue for fixing the hand at one point, and I was just like, this is literally
your
I've peaked. This is what bucket list item. It's over. I don't need to do anything else, guys.
Why doesn't-
I helped Death Roll with the hand?
Why doesn't Triton have tiny hands?
It
doesn't yet.
I want to put ears on it, actually. I think ears would be way easier on Triton.
Big
I want to put, yeah. We did put googly eyes on it once.
And Dustin's
gotta be like
Dustin
a
was
big
not-
That was not on brand. No, that was not on brand.
But
Triton's a little devil horn.
That's what
really.
sucks about both our bots. Like, there's not really like a place to put a face on
Mm.
either of us.
Favorite thing about Jackpot though, because it has like its profile is very much like, you know, you can say it's a cookie cutter robot. It has freaking card suit weapons.
Yeah.
Like
No.
it spins a giant heart to hit people, Jeff. Like that's not normal. Like the threshold for cookie cutter is like it has glitter on it, you know?
I always get the whole, oh, you're a 4-wheel driver.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, we built a giant horizontal, like maximum size bar, and the arena still has a shelf. So it's like, how are we ever gonna do any? Like, how are we gonna move around and do anything in that arena ever? You know, it's like, hey, build a giant weapon. Who cares? See what? Maybe we can cut the shelf in half. I don't know. You know.
I would love to see you destroy the shelf.
I think a lot of people.
join
I
the
would
club.
love, I would pay money to see
Yeah.
that shelf.
did too.
I'm pretty sure BattleBots would not love for Triton to destroy the shelf.
No.
But it's fine.
It's good TV.
It's, yes, it's great TV.
Sometimes you have to do violent things to, you know, save everybody. Sometimes you need to resort to violence.
Someone has to do the sacrifice.
Yeah, someone has to make the sacrifice.
And why not the shelf?
Yeah,
It's the shelf's turn.
it's
Yeah.
definitely a
The
shelf.
shelf
turn.
time has come.
I hate that shelf. Oh,
I think a lot of people feel similarly, especially those who happen to have a horizontal weapon specifically.
No.
oh yeah.
But that's
I don't mind it so much,
because
but
you're a 4-wheel driver.
Because you shot off the shelf.
That's
The thing that angered, well, I don't say angered me, but that threw me through a loop was that when they first introduced a shelf, they came up with give information about it, like statistics. Oh, it only takes up like this much percentage of the arena. Well, yeah, sure, but that floor space on either side of the shelf is also completely useless because if you see like Megabyte when it gets in there, it's now like a pinball stuck in there. You know, if Triton got stuck in there, like we how do we get out of there? So like it cuts off literally a third of the arena and makes any horizontal a lot less effective unless you like mouse with a much shorter bar. It can still be really effective. But then also still like certain robots just don't deal as well. And I want to see the robots fighting the robots, not fighting the arena.
Or
and that's
getting
like
stuck
we're
on
getting
things.
stuck on the arena. Yeah,
That's
like
the thing. If you want to minimize dangerous like unstick situations, like take out the opportunity to just
but
yeah.
I don't see the shelf going away because it's very solidified. It's staying when Gigabyte went in the tantrum. They're like, oh, it did this one time, so we got to keep it forever.
Yeah, I really hope they get rid of it soon though. Like it's been here for a couple years now. I don't want put something else weird in there,
cut
but
it in a diagonal and put it on the corners, you could still have the opportunity for chaos, you know, with things launching off of it and getting stuck on it or whatever, but it wouldn't be an obstruction. It would be a feature. Like I think a lot of
Yeah.
people like the idea of having interesting variety in the arena to a degree, but when it's just like nobody wants to see a robot get stuck in the kill saw.
That'll make the arena
No.
six-sided.
That's not
I don't hate it.
fun. You know, like that just makes everybody and it damages things, you know, like it's more opportunity for the arena to get hurt and for fights to end anticlimactically. So I don't know. I would love to see it be corner shelves. 2 corner shelves, fine.
I want no shelf.
same.
Yeah.
No shelf. No shelf.
If you're gonna have it and have the, you know, the intrigue of it.
I
Originally
just
it was
don't-
supposed
I
to
don't
help
like-
control bots, and there's nothing there's no advantage to it for a control bot. You put something up there
It is driving.
and it's there now.
If
you
it had
know?
the sidewalls, it'd be more usable.
Oh yeah,
But it
that
would-
was one
it would be
decision
more
this year. They
things.
wanted to put the
It would
sidewalls
be
on.
more to get stuck on the way it is. If they made it, you know, something that didn't just obstruct a third of the arena.
Just put it in the
It would
center
be-
of the arena, put ramps on all sides.
King of the Hill.
That would be the actual.
Put it
worst.
down-
Jeff.
put
Thank
it
you
in-
for
put it
putting
in
that in
the center.
perspective for
Put it
me.
in the center and have a donut hole pit in the middle.
There is a rock your bottom.
You fall in the
This makes me
pit, you're
feel
out.
better. Okay, it could be worse. Yeah, you're right.
It could be worse, but I'd rather have I'm okay with the arena having things and features to try and prevent forks from being such a thing and wedging, because that's just going to naturally be a thing that progresses. And then I feel like they should just start telling people, like, just stop doing this. Like, what? Like, we would stop accepting them. I don't know, but like, stop putting forks on. But like,
there's like a point this season where it's just like, that's a lot of fork.
yeah,
Why do you need that much fork?
Too. It's like, eat with your hands.
I
Okay.
would like them to do what they do with the Canadian sumo bots and put a giant pole in the center of the arena, just so people have something to dance around.
No.
And also, it'd be very hilarious to watch a horizontal fly across the arena, then hit the pole, then fly.
Spoken like a true four-wheel drive vert. Okay, like I see why people say this about you, Jeff. I see it now. I'm seeing a whole new world now that I'm on a horizontal team. It is. Life is hard. It's hard
Chaotic
out
evil.
here.
It's chaotic
Yeah.
evil.
It can be so great, but it can be so brutal.
I don't know which one's better, the horizontal or the vertical deep six.
Oh, with Deep Six is going from Jackpot to Triton was like my expectations during a Jackpot fight completely different from when I'm going up for a Triton fight. Again, it's like you're just expecting more than the robot that you're fighting to be the problem. You know, like that's the thing with Triton is the things you're fighting are not just the other robot. It's literally everything else.
What's so interesting is that, like, you know, when I started Combat Robots, like heavyweights especially, horizontals were kings. You know, Megabyte or Gigabyte and Last Rites or Tombstone. Those are like the top tier robot. There wasn't a lot of them, so that's kind of why they were too. But horizontals are so good. But what changed is not necessarily like the arena is still, you know, about the same size or whatever. The bigger the arena, the better horizontal generally does. But additionally, robots are so much faster now. And that's the key, is like, since you can be so fast, smaller, lighter weapons, vertical weapons are better overall because you can close gaps and get to horizontals. Horizontals have not been as strong for several years now, simply because robots are so much faster.
Well, not only that, but you're getting like magnet slugs like Claw Viper, Tantrum Blitz.
Yeah, giant armored wedges.
It's better.
Every single, I'd say the top percentile of all the bots have like some type of magnetic downforce on it now.
Well, I mean, we had that years ago, but we just didn't.
But
It
now
was more secret. It was like, don't tell them about the magnets underneath. You know, it was always this thing.
But now it's to the point where like that's part of, you got the ground game, you got the magnets, and you got enough drive power to move like a 600-pound robot, because you got to move your bot plus 300 pounds of downforce plus the other guy.
Yeah.
You know, that's why Tantrum is more really of a control bot than a spinner, because it's just a wedge with a slidey weapon.
Well, its attack is a little bit more tactical, I guess.
It's kind of like a pseudo hammer saw. It's like the hammer saw of four-wheel drivers.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it controls differently. Yeah.
That's actually what I do enjoy about like Tantrum and Sawblaze and Scorpios is like the Jackpot. I can't pin them against the wall then hit them. Like I have to give up the control to get that hit.
No.
Which I'll see a lot of that, because like I've using those forks more than I used the weapon this year, really. Which is, I think, the downfall of Jackpot.
Well, I don't know anything about that. Triton's just a giant weapon. That's all we have. So that's what we do. We spin.
Going into every fight, it was like, okay, well, what do we want to do for this opponent? It's like,
Spin up.
try and make it harder for them to hit us.
You have one config. Well, no, you have multiple bars.
We have small, like, little things that like allow us to maybe be a little more protected for this or that, and then like a couple different bars that are specific for like better for certain robots.
But you don't have to play the configuration where it's like a robot, because you already know it.
We're going in giant horizontal. That's what we do. Slight differences that are just like protectionary or, you know, weight wise or what have you.
Yeah. Which is cleaner.
Which is nice. Yeah, it's really. It's like, oh, well, just gonna, you know, I can understand why Ray has such a great time with Tombstone, because he just
goes up at Tombstone,
keeps putting the same thing in the arenas, and it does pretty good. It's like, okay, next time.
Exciting. That's the thing. Is there's like the honesty of that kind of robot design is gonna have more interesting fights usually, because
you know
there's no messing around trying to out Fox, I guess, is the thing. Like, if you want to win, like if your goal is just to win and not to really like fight or at least put on a show, then, you know, that changes your approach. Like Triton is meant to, you know, hit really hard and move around and be exciting. It's not meant to just get under somebody and make sure that they can't, you know, it's not meant to deaden a fight by stopping the other robot from doing something interesting. It's meant to interact in an exciting way. And I think that's the problem with the fork meta is it's just about making sure you don't have anything exciting happen to you.
It's not about you winning, it's more about you not losing.
It's a more defensive strategy.
Right.
Yeah. But if it stops things from actually happening, then that's, you know,
it can be boring.
Winning in that situation, you know?
Not the fans.
Not the fans. Some more stuff, which that's the other thing too, that was realizing like, okay, I really don't want this to break on my robot. So
but I think a lot of it too is robots evolved more from boxing to more of like a martial art now. So
that's true.
Before it used to be like, you know, boxing, you hit the guy really hard, knock him out. Now it's to the point where it's trying to be technical, you're trying to get a grab on him, or it's the equivalent of like trying to take someone down to the ground and to get him to tap out rather than just knocking him out for 10 seconds. And I think that's kind of how it's changed over the years. And I mean, it's kind of the branding has changed too. Like the old school BattleBots was more boxing like themed, and you know, they had the whole what's his name? The old announcer was the boxer announcer, and now we have Kenny, which is a UFC fighter. So the analogy kind of works on both ways, and it kind of works with what is popular too, fighting wise. So it's definitely a lot more technical of a sport than just what it used to be.
I'd say that that's a pretty fair assessment. I mean, I'm definitely excited to see how the rest of the season plays out. I mean, there's so much more to come. It's crazy to me when I think about it, and I'm like the finals aren't going to be until May. That's nuts. But it means
such a good season though.
It's lots of BattleBots to watch. It is gonna be like, without even seeing the qualifiers, I think that I can safely say it's going to be a really good season.
Then we're not even going to roll into and they're probably not going to roll in the Golden Bowl until at least a month after the main season, because they can't start it before, because then they'll spoil who wins the whole thing because they're in the Golden Bowl.
Yep.
Or they can do it where they can do the fights going into it beforehand, then they announce who the winner of the nut is as the final spot. They could do it like that. It all depends on how Discovery wants to air it out, I guess.
It's amazing how much content is generated during one season and how little of it actually makes it to TV. Like, I mean, just like fights alone, but there's so much like
interviews and stuff.
Or well, just the experience of being there has so much more going on to it than I think like, you know, it would be a separate show to show how difficult it is to be a BattleBots, I guess.
We need like a Drive to Survive for BattleBots.
And that's what I'm gonna try to do for the next season. Since you know I'm gonna have a little bit more freedom to do some stuff, so there'll definitely be plenty of that on this show, which I'm excited about. So
I'll have to see how, like, because I know there's another one that did something similar to that. Like they followed Emulsifier through the whole thing. Like that's actually not a bad idea. You pick a team and follow them through their journey through the season. Kind of like that's actually exactly
kind of like what Zach and Diane do.
Yeah.
They're Zach and Diane is a builder blog. I think that's like there's definitely a.
But having it third party would be the way to have it. Like, they're struggling.
They kind of are the third party for other robots a lot of times. It's like sure that everybody gets to see parts of everyone else's things. But it's interesting. It's gonna be really nice. It's gonna be really nice to see how the live show interprets, you know, the drama of BattleBots as we know it. I think is kind of also the big mystery that we're looking forward to seeing play out, because the narrative of a fight night at filming is going to be very different from, even though like the fights are real for the live show, they're not scripting anything like that. Like people are really driving, they're really fighting, they want genuine wins. So how that'll be played out, you know, separate from the actual builders is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely will be. So yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun. And you know, this is one of several like team mashup episodes that I have planned for this season. So it should be really exciting. This was fun to do, and I definitely want to do more of
Yeah,
this
it's been a
because
lot of fun.
I think that it's, you know, it's interesting to see dynamics with, you know, two different teams, even though you guys all like obviously like work together on the robots, but it's
It's a
still,
normal
you know,
Saturday.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, if you know, if fans who are watching really like this and want to see more of these, let me know. You know, make sure that you comment and you know, say something, because I will definitely do as many of these kind of things as you would like, and as many as I can possibly do. But you know, just keep watching. Plenty more to come, and looking forward to a really exciting season.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell.
What?
Oh my God.
Do all the things.
Butterfly
Yeah.
Podbean, everything, all that.
Yep, exactly.